want to start by craving your indulgence that we give a big round of applause to the teams at the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Information, and the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, first for the idea and for gathering us here to start off on Spark Up 2021. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I do this on behalf of the Minister responsible for Finance and myself. The story of FDI often appears as a footnote in the national conversation. More often than not, it's the sensational man bites dog story that captures our total attention as a people. And we spend weeks unending interrogating and analyzing how this man bit this dog, because it sounds exciting and sounds stimulating. Trends on social media, which are the things that determine what now comes into mainstream media and what we all end up talking about, are dictated by facts and what looks appealing. And yet, when we are all done with these conversations, what we really hope will have happened in the period when we're having these conversations is that growth, jobs, and incomes were also being created somehow in the Ghanaian economy. But our attention was not focused on that. FDI is one of the key and effective contributors to growth, to jobs, incomes, and improvement in the quality of lives of our people. And if there are two subjects that I dare say we should be consumed with as a country at every point in time, one will be domestic resource mobilization, but the second, no doubt, will be FDI. FDI is even more significant because of the traditionally low incomes, low savings in our country. And therefore, it's important that you get a lot of foreign direct investments to spark up the exercise of economic growth within your jurisdiction. Now, the statistics show that attracting FDI is something that the government of Ghana, through various administrations, has done very well over the decades. And in the last 5 years, I think it's obvious that we've done it exceptionally well. Last year alone, during the pandemic, as Mr. Grant mentioned earlier, Ghana came second in attracting foreign direct investments into its jurisdiction. A total of nearly $2.8 billion worth of investments were recorded in the Ghanaian space for the year 2020. Out of that, about $2.7 billion was from foreign direct investments, and the other about $100 million from domestic investments. I want to share with you just a bit of data on this 2.7 FDI, and that will dovetail us into our Spark Up conversation. Now, the data suggests that this 2.7 FDI comes from about 279 projects that were registered within the year here in Ghana. That comprises about 129 newly registered projects, 139 upstream development, and 19 free zones activities dispersed across 8 out of the 16 regions. So there's a question about what's happening to the other 8 regions. But 8 regions, and the Greater Accra region being the biggest beneficiary. Now, if you go into the data, there's a breakdown of how much of this investment goes into agriculture, how much goes into industry, how much goes into services. There's even a bigger question about where are these investments? Have they all been fully onboarded and are functioning? What does it take to get these investments fully onboarded and functioning? And how can various stakeholders in the value chain play a part in it? The theory is that determinants of FDI flows include a favorable economic environment, and as Mr. Grant has been mentioning, there's a lot that has been done to create a favorable economic environment here in Ghana, at least relatively. If you look at what they call the macro indicators, whether it's interest rates or inflation or the general ease of doing business, creating what President Kufuor will call an enabling environment, or what the general theory suggests is a favorable economic environment, is one of the major things that we have been doing. And it is one of the major determinants of FDI. And you'll notice from time to time that the various presidents of Ghana will be traveling all over the world, highlighting the favorable economic environment that we are creating in Ghana and asking foreign direct investors to come on board, inject their capital, their know-how, their technology, so that we can open up the Ghanaian economic space. You also need what they call an easy identification of investment opportunities. There must be clarity in what the opportunities are. And as Mr. Grant was just mentioning, we have a lot of clarity in what the next growth poles are for our Ghanaian jurisdiction. But a couple of other things that you need are A, access to facilitating services. So usually you have an FDI that comes, registers 100 million, 50 million, 10 million, 12 million, and tells you the number of jobs that it can create. In fact, in the year 2020, the data is that out of the nearly $2.7 billion worth of investment, at least about 27,000 direct jobs are supposed to come from that. But for all of that to happen, you need A, facilitating agencies to support these FDIs. That means utility service providers, electricity, water, telecoms, local authorities. You need private service providers, financial services like banks, insurance companies, and other services, haulage companies, other companies that will connect with these FDIs with ease so that they can fully onboard their investments. You also need, in particular, local communities and the Ghanaian youth to embrace and to onboard these. There are instances where, for example, one of the largest agric plants in the world, created here in Ghana, functioning here in Ghana, now being frustrated by the local community and youth in the local community over issues like land and traditional matters and who has rights and access to land. And then you also need your collaborators in the media to make the conversation of FDI and investment in general, which is what will bring about the growth, the jobs, and the incomes, the major and the mainstream conversation that we all spend our time about on a regular basis. Very often we find that these participating pillars are missing. The facilitator agencies are often blamed as one of those who are frustrating FDIs a lot. The private service providers are thought to have low capacity. If you look at, for example, what's happening in the oil industry and even insurance for the oil industry, and the fact that it is argued that local insurance companies sometimes don't have the balance sheets to underwrite some of the insurance opportunities available and even what is required by these FDIs. If you look at some of the concerns that FDI operators raise about the local communities in which they operate and the kind of difficulties that they who have brought their investments to hopefully open up the place so that we can have growth and jobs and incomes and a higher quality of life, the kind of challenges that they are facing with local communities. And the fact that sometimes we ourselves in the midst of our public conversation just run down all of these opportunities. There is the need for us to consciously focus on collaborating to spark up all of these potential investments that are registered at our door. 2.7 billion worth of it in the year 2020. How much of it have we been actually able to fully onboard by now, half of the year 2021? What are the challenges they are having? What is our various roles in sparking up this space so that they can function in resolving some of these challenges that they are facing? And even more importantly, what are the opportunities, as Mr. Grant mentioned, for various stakeholders in the value chain to connect with these FDIs that want or that have already indicated or have started their operations to operate? There's a young person, a group of young persons who are looking for work, and every morning print their CVs going around. And there's an FDI that has brought machinery and money and technical know-how to a local community that it wants to build a starch processing plant. And it rather requires outgrowers who just grow cassava and make it available to them. If we are able to spark up this conversation pretty well and focus our attention on it, these young people will realize that perhaps the opportunity, as Mr. Grant spoke about, lies in setting up cassava plantations and not necessarily going around looking for someone else to hire them, growing this cassava for this FDI so that it can be processed into starch and exported and the foreign exchange comes in. That is how the city will be maintained pretty well. That is how the local economy will be stimulated. That is how the young men and women in the community will get jobs. Our challenge is to find a way by which we can focus the attention and the energies of the various stakeholders, not on the man bites dog, but on this kind of conversation. That is what will spark up the growth, the jobs, and the incomes, especially after a pandemic like the one that we are having. And so it is with excitement that the GIPC, the Ministry of Finance, supported by the Ministry of Information, come together to introduce this annual investment summit of the GIPC, which brings together the various stakeholders in the value chain. Heads of state may have done their part by traveling the world to sell Ghana's investment potential. The Investment Promotion Agency, GIPC, may have followed up, telling everybody about the various investment opportunities, and may have even attracted them to register $2.7 billion worth of investments with 27,000 direct jobs there. What is our role now in helping to ensure that they are onboarded? And that is why Spark Up has been created. So on the 6th of September, here at the Kempinski Hotel, Gold Coast City, we'll be having the first of the Spark Up conferences. It's an annual conference. This is Spark Up 2021, and it's in two parts. There's an opening ceremony where the President, the Minister responsible for Finance, the Minister responsible for Trade and Industry, and other ministers who are responsible for creating this enabling environment will outline to us what has been done so far in creating this enabling environment. The GIPC will also go through the specific investment opportunities that are available and that have been onboarded. And then we'll spend our time doing two major things for the day. One, for these 200 and so investments for 2020 that were registered, we'll have an opportunity to engage with them. Where are they really? And how are they being onboarded across the country? And what sort of value are they creating out there? So that we can see for ourselves, as I keep saying, not just the man bites dog, but the kind of growth and progress that we are making, particularly with these FDIs. And then we'll spend a second time, so we will account for these FDIs and how far they have come. We'll spend the second session having an opportunity to engage with the facilitator services, those who are responsible for ensuring that they are onboarded, the local communities, the utility service providers, the regulators, those who are responsible for ensuring that we facilitate these billions of investments, these tens of thousands of potential jobs that are to be onboarded. There will be an open, frank interaction so that we will be confronted with the realities of onboarding investments and what all of us can do to make it easier for this $2.7 billion worth of capital, worth of investment to be fully onboarded, and for those 27,000 jobs to be occasioned. The theme, as was mentioned by Mr. Grant, is reawakening the giant and maximizing Ghana's investment potential. And specifically, we are looking to attract the attention of facilitator agencies, as I mentioned, the regulators, the public utility service providers who are responsible for providing things like electricity and water and telecoms and licenses for these FDIs to be onboarded. We are also looking to attract the attention of private service providers. Many of these organizations require credit facilities from banks with big balance sheets that can do big ticket transactions, insurance companies that can underwrite some of their transactions, haulage companies, other services that can be provided by the private sector here in Ghana. And so we are looking to attract the attention of the private service providers. And for you, when these FDIs are successful, you benefit, because that's where you make a lot of money by providing your services to them. And so we believe it is also in your interest to partner us as we engage directly with these FDIs that are being onboarded. We're also looking to attract the attention of the Ghanaian young entrepreneur and local communities where these FDIs are being onboarded. What is our responsibility in ensuring that these FDIs are supported so that they create value for our local community? Because if traditionally our incomes have been low and therefore we have low savings and low capital, it takes FDI to open up our places. And so we are looking to attract the attention of the local communities where these FDIs are being onboarded so that they can also participate in that conversation of what is our responsibility, what can we do in making sure that these investments are onboarded. And then finally, you, our colleagues in the media, we are looking to attract your attention that will mainstream this conversation. These are the conversations that create opportunity, or that open up the opportunity, that create growth and jobs and incomes and an improvement in the quality of lives of our people. And so we are praying, you, our colleagues in the media, we're hoping to attract your attention as well, so that you can join us in mainstreaming and focusing the attention of the country on the key or the ignition that sparks up growth, jobs, incomes for the Ghanaian people. Our thanks go to our collaborators so far and the agencies that are on board with us and are supporting. And our prayer is that by the time we are done with Spark Up 2021, we will have reignited that conversation, reawoken the giant, would have explored ways by which we can maximize Ghana's investment potential. And then year on year, as we challenge ourselves some more on this and to build on it, hopefully we can quicken the rate at which we are growing and the depth of that growth so that more jobs, more opportunities, more incomes are created for the Ghanaian people. On behalf of the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Information, we are only supporters of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. I want to thank you and wish us all the best as we prepare for Spark Up 2021. I'm informed that in the next 24 hours, the registration website will be made or will go live. We'll go live. If I just have the permission to announce that address, it's www.sparkup.gipc.gov.gh. www.sparkup.gipc.gov.gh.